I just realized that I could go live and give it a few minutes before I hit that go live button to see if anyone shows up and is waiting to talk. Um, that would actually probably save us all some time and some trouble. So I'm going to have to keep that in mind. This is also the first time where I've actually used the title um, right before going live. Excuse me. Normally it is um, without a topic and everything's just sort of free form, whatever comes to mind as I'm talking, as well as if people come on and we end up talking about other stuff as well, which still might happen. I also noticed my spell check when I was typing out toxic masculinity wanted to go with toxic Massachusetts. I don't know as Massachusetts is toxic, so I didn't go with that title, and we're sticking with the toxic masculinity. Whether or not that's a subject that's actually going to be pursued in depth today, we'll see. Um, it sort of feels like something that should be uh, addressed within a conversation with others. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And of course, I'll talk about it from not just my perspective, but from a uh, yogic and perhaps Buddhist psychology, Taoist perspective. Not that I am any great yogi or a master of Buddhist psychology or even a full fledged Taoist apprentice, let alone master. Um, they are subjects deep to my heart, things that I have embraced on how I wish to live my life. So, um, most especially yoga. Hey, Derek, how are you? Happy Friday. We're joined by Osiris, uh, Derek, and Derek is someone who was part of the conversation on who's a motivations page where he brought up, Aldo talked about toxic masculinity and his perspective, which was insightful. And he was training with his young son. So you can tell when you have a son, when you have a daughter, when you have children, this is an important subject because what are we bringing to our children? What expectations um, are we bringing to our children for how they are going to navigate the world? How are they going to interact with the world? If we are sending the wrong message of masculinity, obviously their interaction with the world is going to have a negative consequence to themselves and to those who they come in contact with. Conversely, um, the women in our life, if we have a daughter, she is going to be affected by any aspect of toxic masculinity. I guess one thing to start off, first off, is masculinity is a natural expression of energy. It's a force. In yogic um, psychology, it would be Shiva energy. We have Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is the action, the manifest. Well, Shakti is the divine feminine, which everything stems from. So we all possess the masculine, we all possess the feminine. When we talk about balancing the two, some people think that it's a balance of 50-50. That's not balancing, that's being balanced. And balancing is always the process of coming to center, meaning it might be, let's say a typical man, and this is just a figure I'm pulling out, is 70% masculine energy, 30% feminine energy. A balance isn't coming 50-50. A balance is walking through life with that 70-30%, if that makes sense. Being able to fully access that 30%, to bring that creative force, that creative energy, our divine feminine essence into play, into the world. That's how we become great artists. That's how we become great thinkers, those that dream big. And then we need that masculine energy to bring it out into the world, to carry that message, to get that art to reach other people. So balancing means we have both of these qualities and we utilize them most effectively and efficiently to our lives. That's yoga. Yoga literally means union, to join. We are joining that which is already present, but not realized. We're joining Shiva, Shakti. We are joining feminine, masculine. Here's the problem, going off on a rant. I forget why I started it. So we have both of these essence, natural. Here's where I was going with toxic, the word toxic. As soon as people hear toxic masculinity, they're thinking that it is against men, that it's against masculinity. Toxic masculinity, and Moca and I talked about this morning, it's its own thing. It's a perversion of masculinity. It's not real masculinity. You don't have to work to express your masculinity. You don't have to do anything other than simply be. As a man, it's a natural occurrence. It just happens automatically. As a man, whatever you're doing is some kind of expression of that sacred masculinity, of the divine masculinity. The same as a woman doesn't have to do anything particular to express that feminine energy, the divine femininity. It simply is. Osiris says, I appreciate the energy perspective. This sounds like a learned belief. Do you think these are observable, universal? Actually, that's the thing. It's not so much a belief as it is observable everywhere. Indigenous cultures across the world, some of the most sophisticated psychology of Buddhism and yoga, which predates Western psychology, only now catching up with that thinking, have all expressed this. And even Western psychology recognizes gender is separate from sex. So, I mean, this is why, again, native cultures across the world often celebrate that third gender of possessing both those qualities, but one being more predominant. Let's say for men, the feminine, for whatever reason, that feminine energy is more predominant than the women. A belief system is how we get to toxic masculinity, because they believe, for whatever reason, they were taught that way, that men need to express their masculine energy in an aggressive, forceful, even somewhat violent way. And they're taught that. That's what masculinity is. And of course it isn't. Masculinity is that natural expression of drive, taking the creativity of Shakti, the creativity of the feminine, and using that masculine energy to put it into the universe, to make something, to become something. Osiris says, totally agree, gender is separate from sex. And that's such a fine distinction that's not realized with people. So when they say, and it's not even fully realized within, I would say, the transgender world, which I might be stepping on some toes, so I'm treading a little carefully, that when you realize the fluidity of gender, the association of saying, I am this, I am that, becomes a little less important. You just are. And it's okay to express being you. Masculine, feminine energy sounds like it would exist outside human culture, says Osiris. And absolutely, Derek, absolutely. Which is why it's given the archetypes of Shiva and Shakti, um, or, you know, Taoist principles or the Buddhist principles. Uh, Even in Western cultures, we're given it these archetypes of the Divine Mother, of the Mother Mary, um, or God as a He. So even within the heavily masculine influence of Christianity, we needed that sacred femininity to be expressed. So we came up with the Blessed Mother. We came up with the Virgin Mary, um, because we needed some way for it to be expressed, to bring it into balance. And it is, fairly obvious that Christianity is heavily um, masculine energy, which is odd because the message of Christ itself uh, is fully balanced with its masculine energy as well as its feminine energy. Um, and this is all the things that we've, again, the toxicity. I'm going to say that word probably a lot, and each time I say it, it's going to sound different, and it's probably not going to be correct anytime across the board. Um, that isn't masculinity. Toxic masculinity is, again, its own thing. It's the perversion of a natural energy by beliefs of what we think it should be. That the masculine needs to express itself this way only. This is the way it's supposed to be. And if you don't conform, toxic masculinity is all about conforming. Masculinity, it's simply about being yourself, being relaxed in presence, relaxed who you are without need to force anything, because you know that true power is that balance. True power is drawing forth the masculine energy to get things done and the feminine energy to dream, to reach, to create. That's the balance. So the perversion comes again from beliefs. But of course, that's not just a matter of energy, it's across the board. I always go back to Katie Bryan's self inquiry, when she would just simply ask people, whatever the issue, is it true? Can you absolutely know for certain that it's true? Not even an inkling of doubt. And then she'll ask, who would you believe without the belief that it's true? So if you have these beliefs about masculinity, toxic or otherwise, who would you believe without that belief? Would you still be masculine? Would you be more feminine because of that? If you had these beliefs that cause toxic masculinity, who would you be without them? Would simply be a man who's not acting on his belief, but who's acting from that divine masculinity. That's the difference. That's the big difference. That you look at the video of Aldo and his son working out in the lawn. That wasn't forced. That wasn't a matter of belief. It was just pure energy, having fun, being expressed. It was masculine energy. But again, it wasn't forced. It wasn't something where Aldo had to say, this is how you do it. This is how, this is how a man does this. It was just that natural display of the masculine, of the divine masculine. Things like that, beautiful thing to watch, because it's things like that that give you hope for the world. Because that kid's going to grow up to be a man. He's going to grow up to be someone who expresses his masculinity in a pure, loving manner. Osiris says, I question whether there are universal characteristics seen outside humans that are masculine and feminine, energy-wise. And it's probably good to question that. Well, it's absolutely good to question that. But we see it, um, the Taoist sages, the yogic seers would all see that being expressed through nature. We see the creativity of nature being feminine. This is why the great, every great tradition, um, views, the universe as the mother, views the universe as, feminine in essence. Really, if you get outside of characteristics and you just go to the energy of it obviously, saying feminine, masculine, it's just a label to the energy itself. When you experience the energy, which we all do naturally, which is why whatever I do is, um, expressed the natural essence of masculinity because of my masculine energy, as well as when I create, I'm in touch with that feminine energy. There's a balance. Um, but again, those two terms, just labels to the, archetypes, label to the energy that we have, and I think it's something easily experienced when we are driven. We're very much in touch with that masculine energy, man or woman, doesn't matter. You know, if we are in that creative mode, we're going to be very much in touch with that. It's only later that we might say, well, that was my feminine energy or that was my masculine energy. When it's happening, it's just energy. But of course, to have a conversation about anything, we need to give some kind of label, some kind of term. Um, Otherwise, we'd have no conversation. Which many people who listen to me would say, well, that would be a relief, actually. Um, Maybe without labels, you'd be quiet for a while, which is true. I probably would be. Um, but that's an excellent point, Derek. And again, when we question things like that, it allows us to dive a little deeper for answers, a little deeper for explanations. But I wonder, in your own experience, Derek, in your own experience sitting Zen, um, have you just felt a shift of energy that was clearly, um, seeming to be expressed one direction or the other? Meaning, did you ever have an experience sitting in Zen where you felt more attuned to the, divine feminine, or perhaps, or even in judo? Because it's all, again, judo is all about balance. It's all about putting somebody else off balance. So we're expressing that yin yang. We're expressing that, push pull, masculine feminine. We're expressing, judo is such a fine art of manipulating someone else's energy as well as using our own energy to get the task at hand. Osiris says, I hear Eric. I'm finding it interesting that you, hone in on driven being masculine and creative being feminine. Yeah, that's mainly from a Taoist and yogic, perspective. Although I would say, um, you know, again, when everyone has all of these qualities expressed differently, different amounts. So when you say that a woman is driven and we attribute that to a masculine quality, it doesn't detract from her feminine energy in any way. She's utilizing her natural characteristics of a masculine energy. Energy is not, energy itself isn't really masculine or feminine. It just is, but it has a different mode of expression. And we give that mode of expression a label. Creativity is its own type of energy. And we attribute that to the divine feminine because it's the feminine itself. It's the divine archetype of the mother that brings life to fruition. It's that which is the womb of all creation. And it's the masculine drive, or those qualities that we later come to call masculine drive, that brings everything out, manifest into the world. So it's always funny talking about energy expressions and doing our best not to get bogged into the details of just because I'm creative doesn't mean I'm feminine. Just because I'm driven doesn't mean I'm masculine. It doesn't. What it means is that you are so fully realized that you allow yourself to express these qualities that have the characteristics of the masculine or the characteristics of the feminine. And Destiny Forever Walks is here. I'm always hesitant just to leave it at Destiny Forever Walks without throwing in the PhD, because that PhD, hard-earned, no easy task, should always be appreciated. When you have someone who has taken their education so seriously that they've taken it to the pinnacle, to the very top, then every time you see it, at least once in the beginning of a conversation, it should be acknowledged. It should be a deep bow of respect and all due praise for somebody who did such a thing. So again, using those terms it's a thorny issue, because someone will in a larger conversation, someone will always take some kind of offense that, how dare you say this was, a masculine thing for me to do? If I was a man, would you say? But again, it doesn't mean what you think it does for most people. It's just a description. As they say in Zen, don't take the description for the actuality, for the suchness. Destiny says, respect to you as well, Eric. Blessings and love, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate that. That, or as they say in certain schools of psychology and NLP, the menu is not the meal, or the map is not the territory. So masculine, feminine energy is a description of the actuality of how we express ourselves. Not good or not bad. Saying masculine doesn't mean, saying masculine within the context of being a man isn't good, isn't bad. It's just an actuality. It's who and what they are in essence, along with that feminine energy as well. And then hopefully we come to that balance. Osiris says, I agree with, they are thorny. Interesting how most words and their association actions have a gender attached in the West. True. And I think that it causes no small amount of trouble for us, because people are so clearly identified with the belief that gender is this or gender is that, and that I am this particular thing and only this particular thing. But as you mentioned earlier in the conversation, Derek, beliefs. And who would we be without these beliefs? So interesting to be able to step out of that belief system just for a little bit and experience the freedom that comes with simply not knowing, which again is a um, big thing in Zen. Simply not knowing, most particularly Korean Zen, an entire practice of just not knowing. Or as the Vedic seer Nisargadatta Maharishi said, why not start with not knowing? Because that's where we're going to end up. When we reach that point where we realize it's all just a mystery, why not know that now? And then, what is it to hold on to? If it's mystery, what is it to hold on to? Osiris says exactly. And Destiny says that's a very interesting topic to discuss. Masculine and feminine energies. I found a lot of people get that particular topic twisted. Yes, that's what we've been, Osiris and I have been tossing these thoughts back and forth. And I think for both of us, though, for across the board, Derek's asking some important questions, and it helps me not get too attached to my own preferred terms that I like to use in discussing the energies. If I left off masculine and feminine and I just said creative and driven, think how much conflict that would save. Because we would all say, well, I definitely have some driven energy. I definitely have some creative energy. Imagine how many men might say, I'm 80% creative and 20% driven. Or how many women might say, I'm 70% driven and 30% creative. Not realizing that in some traditions, those are given labels of masculine and feminine. If we step outside that belief system, or the label system, just because something is called masculine doesn't mean it's the thing. It's the label. The actuality is just who you are, expressed freely, openly, bravely, if you're lucky. Some people aren't so lucky, and they're unable to express their true values of who they are, creatively, drivenly, masculinity, femininity. They're just unable to for a variety of reasons. They have been stifled by beliefs of this is how you're supposed to behave according to the gender that you've been given. So it's a good thing to discuss. It's a good thing to, again, try to get to the bottom to, knowing that there's no actual bottom. Turtles all the way down. You think you got to the bottom? Guess what? You found another turtle and you look underneath and you see nothing but those turtles all the way down. Infinite turtles. That's that's a great thing about being able to discuss it freely. I don't have to have answers. I just have a discussion, just having a conversation. Moca McCarty says, I have been here just listening. I know you have thoughts on the matter. You and I have discussed this ourselves. So definitely put it out there. Osiris says, and at the same time, it's also important to have these ideas in order to model what it means to be a good person. Exactly, as well as to model what it is to be a good parent. That when you are in touch with this, you're not going to place your own judgments on your son, on your daughter. How you choose to express yourself is how you express yourself. Let me backtrack. It's not a matter of how you choose to express yourself. It's how you express yourself freely. Don't let my beliefs interfere and cause you to choose to express yourself otherwise, Be free, be open. Learn to express yourself as you are. And then follow your path. Osiris says, what is it that makes a good man? Man, that might go back to beliefs. I don't know. Let's get rid of the beliefs of what a good man would be. And we would, I think, definitely see certain qualities. We would see compassion. We would see kindness. We would see the ability to take action and to be creative. I think a good man strives to be, a good man in the world strives to find that balance, knowing they're going to make mistakes, knowing that the key to being in balance is first recognizing that you're not in balance, and then you take those steps. It's the thing with balancing. Anytime you've ever been in a yoga asana, you only perfectly balance for a breath, maybe. You spend the vast majority of time coming to balance, and then the rest of the time falling out of that balance. You've reached that moment of poise, and then you fall out. But that's not the end. You start again. Destiny says we all have both energies with us. We just get to know which of those energies, masculine and feminine, are more dominant within ourselves. That helps to understand our character. Very keen insight. We talked about that quite a bit earlier, possessing both. And again, that's how we find balance. That's how we find balance within an asana, within a yoga pose. Coming to terms, being there. Moca adds, Osiris says, what is it that makes a good woman? Are these the same? Does there need to be a distinction? Strength, Moca replies, strength to be nurturing. I think that answers Osiris's question. There might not be a need to make distinctions. I think being a good man is being, allowing yourself to be, and how that express is going to come out as a good man, because those are the characteristics, that's the energy that you possess, that masculine essence. I think when you're allowed to simply be, it's going to be expressed and shown as a good woman, because that is the feminine energy that's being put forth. So it all comes back to simply being. And then we're done with labels, because it already is. You're a good man because in essence, I'm going to use you as an example, Osiris. You're a good man because in essence, you possess masculine energy that is freely expressed, as well as feminine energy that is freely expressed. But you are predominantly masculine energy navigating the world, balanced. Moca is a good woman because she simply is beingness. It all comes back to beingness. Moca says, don't see compassion and empathy as weakness. Definitely agree, and it often is. More so, I think, today than, I don't want to say in any other time in history, but I think there's been a resurgence of those qualities being seen as a weakness. And Osiris agrees with Moca. Moca adds, define your own masculinity. Don't let society define it for you. And I agree with that. I would even say, don't even bother to define your masculinity. It comes back to that simple message, just be. man, how much pressure is relieved? Just be. Because you're already doing it. You're already there. Imagine that. Everything's accomplished. You've won the lottery of existence. You're here. Now go forth. Just be. Whenever I come to that realization, and the funny thing is, I have to come to it over and over and over again. You reach that moment and you think, I got it. Wow. I've had the epiphany of epiphanies. I've had the grand awakening. I am Turiya, that divine state, seventh means of consciousness. I've hit it. And then bam, you're at square one and you think, I didn't get anything. But when you just realize the ease of being, everything else makes sense. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything to prove my masculinity. I don't have to do anything to claim my divine femininity. I just have to be, and it all unfolds perfectly as it is who we are. Define, not define, says Moca. I didn't say define it for you. Yeah, I sort of self-corrected that as I was reading it. Don't let society define it for you, which I've done my best. It's funny how often we try to be. We take that natural ease of beingness and then we apply effort and we muck it all up because you can't try. You can't try to be. I'm not saying don't try to do anything in the world. Don't attempt to accomplish something. But that bare essence, again, you've already won the lottery. You're here. Against all probable odds, when you think about it, of all the things within the universe, for everything to happen so perfectly that you're here right now, why mess it up with these distinctions, the label? What is it? The epic Zen poem, The Great Way, that everything is torn to thunder by the very essence of a thought entering the equation. Everything is perfect until we say, I wonder, or something along those lines. Because then we create all these distinctions that actually aren't there, don't take place. If we didn't call it masculinity, if we didn't call it femininity, it would just be energy freely expressing itself through us all the time, every day, without anything reaching the point that it got so bad that it would be perverted into what we now call, bringing us all around back to the topic, toxic masculinity. So again, and Mocha and I talked about this earlier this morning when we were walking, that toxic masculinity is its own separate issue. It's not real masculinity. It is that perversion of energy by belief, by a belief system that someone inherited, that a man is supposed to act this way. And most often, it's in an aggressive, forceful manner. My father was soft-spoken, kind-hearted man. Some would think, easy going to the point where maybe he was a bit of a pushover in some instances. Never for me, but I could see how someone might say that. And yet, at 17, he finished high school early so he could join the Navy in World War II. He was on a minesweep in the Till End in the South Pacific. And I've seen him stand up for things that he believed in, regardless of consequences, throughout my life. I don't think he ever once thought this is what a man is supposed to do. He just did what he was supposed to do. He acted under the consequences of his own navigational system, his own belief system, his own This is who I am. Moca is revealing a dark secret here. She said you used to wear that pink t-shirt with the baby seal on it. So in some people's eyes, people might say that you are solid in your masculinity. Some people might say, and some people might say the opposite. Me, I like baby seals. I make no apologies for my love of baby seals. Actually, I make no apology for my love of seals, baby or otherwise. And if that message can be shown on a pink t-shirt, so be it. I miss that t-shirt. I don't know where it is. Osiris says, I'm thinking that I take some issues with the term masculinity because the definition states a connection to sex, the quality of nature of the male sex. That is, assuming there is some quality. That makes sense. It's Osiris goes on and says, seals rot. Completely agree. Across the board. Baby seals, regular seals, Navy SEALs the people, Navy SEALs the burpee. You can't go wrong with SEALs. Seals of approval. Across the board, SEALs are good. They keep things from leaking. Sealed shut. I should have put that in the conversation started. Toxic masculinity and the true nature of SEALs. SEALs on rocks, SEALs off the rocks. Exactly. SEALs. They don't need to define by any particular energy. They simply are. That's the funny thing. Actually, I'm glad that came up. Because, Osiris, you were asking about energy defined through the human lens. And if we turn to the animal kingdom, masculinity is expressed a certain way. That energy is expressed a certain way. Feminine energy is expressed a certain way. And yet, there's no labels. And there is no such thing as a toxic seal. There's no such thing as a toxic lion. They have their lion nature, whatever that is. And as we've seen in nature, sometimes the male species can be completely nurturing, most especially in some cases with birds. Also, we've seen that female species of any particular nature can be very aggressive. Both energies, both modes of expression of that energy, but they don't have those definite labels that's causing so many problems in our understanding. We could take out the word toxic masculinity and just have this person's got some issues that they need to work out in some sort of therapy. They need energetic work. They need balance. They need to meditate. They need to do some yoga. They need to go to group therapy. They need experiment with psychotropic materials. I think a large part of society's ills would be fixed if everyone took a couple doses, ate a couple grams of mushrooms, gained a deeper and different perspective, seeing that things aren't always based upon our belief. That's why we have so many issues. We have belief systems, and then we spend our entire lives and all of our strength using all of our force to bend nature within those belief systems, and nature is independent of our beliefs. Osiris says, that's part of why I asked. Animals don't observe as universals when it comes to masculine and feminine. No, they don't, but they do express those energies. They just don't have the titles for them. We give them titles. But it is still by nature Shiva Shakti. other labels, but that's why I love using the terms Shiva Shakti. It doesn't have the connotations that we have with masculine and feminine. That masculine has to be this way, feminine has to be this way. Which is also why when you look at the yin yang symbol, you see the two blending together, and yet you also see a dot of the opposite within each, signifying that it already exists within the other. That energy is always fluid. It's not just one thing, it's just expressing itself differently. If we say, and how I started the discussion is partially to blame, I think, that we think of energy, and again, I put it out there, energy being masculine, energy being feminine, as if it's two separate energies. It's energy being expressed through the channels of a feminine essence, being expressed through the channels of a masculine essence, but it all comes back down to the single reality of just energy, expressed as it's expressed. When it is outside of us, let's say we're the channel for that energy, when it's outside of our belief system, it's not feminine, it's not masculine, it just is. Moca says with a guide, referring to the trips. Yeah, with a guide, most definitely. Funny enough, Grace Slick and other members of Jefferson Airplane got thrown out of the White House 1970, 1969. I think it was 70, for attempting to dose Richard Nixon, believing that if his mind was opened up a bit, he would be forced to end the war in Vietnam, because he would see things so clearly, he'd realize the ridiculousness of it. And I can't help but agree. Maybe not agree with, dosing someone unsuspecting, but that things would be different. Let's see. Destiny says it's helpful to understand that masculine energy is logical, direct, conquering, moment by moment, firm, robust. The feminine energy is creative, fluid, nurturing, refined, continual, gentle. Absolutely love that description. And yes, that's how it's expressed. Dingo Gaming says hi. Don't Look Here says hi. And Don't Look Here, good vibes. Thanks. Good vibes to you too, my friend. You definitely... Osiris is curious why you think that it's helpful, Destiny Forever. That will be interesting to see how that can be expressed. Again, difficult to talk about. Not because it's a difficult issue, but words are always going to leave us somewhat out of sorts, that we didn't quite capture how we wanted things to come out, that always slightly lacking. But again, it goes back to the map is not the territory, or the meal is not the menu. How unsatisfying it is to read a menu but not actually have a meal. It's just never the essence of the thing. That's what I loved about yoga. That's what I love about Zen. That's what I love about any of the deep contemplative practices, is they say, don't ask me, find out. They might give you tools on how to find out, but I often mention Douglas Harding, who does the headlessness experiments, which is in essence Zen, right to the point, literally pointing, pointing in the direction of the finger and looking at what you see. Douglas Harding says, you've never seen your head before. You've never seen your face. You've seen reflections, you've seen photographs, you've heard descriptions. If you look, you don't see anything. You might see the tip of your nose, you might see a bit of a mustache, you might see the rim of the glasses, but it all emerges from emptiness. You're instantly confronted with the Heart Sutra. Emptiness, form. The emptiness here, the form of the world. One thing becoming the other. The great message that Douglas Harding puts out is you are the sole authority of what you see. No one else can tell you when you point in this direction what you see and what you experience. So point, look, and then simply live from that perspective. Moca says some people would say that serving in the military is masculine, and it definitely was at one time considered that. Women were given very specific roles, if any, in the military, up until not too long ago, as you yourself have experienced in your 23 plus years serving your country. Mocha Osiris was in the Navy, so we have two military people here. Destiny says, I say that Osiris, for it helps us to understand which part of us is in control and the flow of our rhythm and frequency towards the universe. And my tendency here is to agree and see it from Destiny's perspective, that for all the railing that I've done against labels, they're a very useful way of helping us navigate through the world. Very useful for, I keep coming back to the meal is not the menu, but without the menu, sometimes you don't know what to order. You could say, hey, kitchen, surprise me, bring me whatever, and you might get stuck with something that you don't want. If you know that natural play of energy, then you get to play. And that's the essential role of the universe. It's a playground. We're here. Enjoy. I could argue against free will. I could argue against having a specific purpose. For me, it doesn't matter if you do or if you don't. Find a way to enjoy your beingness within the world. Destiny says, that's just my analogy, the way I express my understanding. I think you expressed it quite well. Sarah says, I can appreciate that. I love good vibes at Don't Look Here. Again, it's interesting. It's just find a way that you can express all of this with the labels that work best for you, with the analogy that works best for you. That is really the best that we can do. And again, let's go all the way back, full circle. Toxic masculinity. It's not masculinity. It's toxicity. Again, I mentioned that I'm going to screw that word up every time I try to say it. It's its own thing that's been given that label. It's what some men think they should be. And so some men believe they need to navigate the world. But it's not true masculinity. Mocha says, a squid and a zombie. It will have to take you at your word for that. So, all right, guys. We are coming up 55 minutes, almost an hour. Osiris says that he was a CB. Moca was in the Air Force. Again, 23 plus. And I'm reading some of the messages. I have no idea what's happening. Sometimes it's really good to be innocent of the way of the internet and just get out there and talk and not have to really do things the way it's expected of you. That's the true role of energy. Just acting, just being. Mocha says, oh, I love the CBs. I'm tempted to stay on just a few minutes longer so Mocha and Osiris can have a mini military reunion, like saluting like. So yeah, I do get a kick out of seeing the comments. The ones that I don't understand, for whatever reason, they make me smile. I think it's because I don't understand and I don't need to understand. Makes it even better. Some people say innocence isn't bliss, but I very often live in a blissful world thanks to my innocence. So I will answer one question right off the bat. I am being asked, how old are you? And I'm simply going to say, and I know Mocha's going to say, that's not so. I am old. Definitely old. So, all right, guys. Osiris, thanks. I appreciate you being here. I really appreciate the conversation. Destiny, she says there's a lot of gender bias that comes with such topic. Gender stereotypes lead people to automatically assume that they know someone is just like because they know their gender. I agree, 100%. Hey, just because I'm old doesn't mean I have money. I'm not quite old enough for Social Security and too old to take a job just for the pay. Osiris says he did his time and got the heck out. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Although Mocha she did a lot of time. She did a tour in Iraq. So she did time plus. She put in the work. Osiris had 2 uncles in the Air Force. And I had a father in the Navy, a wife in the Air Force, and I had some uncles in various military roles during World War II. All right, guys. So let's end it there now. Before I start sending out money to my fellow YouTubers who are asking me for money. Osiris, I appreciate the chat as well, very much so. We didn't solve any world problems, but we had a great discussion. Mocha, as always, thank you for joining in. Destiny, thank you as well. Really enjoyed the perspective, as well as you sharing it with us. Everyone else, appreciate you being here. Even if I don't give you money, I still appreciate you guys being here. Take care.